Boy, have we got some good examples of buying off the plan this morning, and we've got some doozies as well. The good, the bad, the ugly, what to watch out for, and some stories after we've settled hundreds of lots this year in a couple of different buildings on off the plan. Stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak. Topic today, should I buy commercial property off the plan? Retail spaces, industrial. Everyone's always talking about apartments, residential. But what about commercial property? Does it matter? Are there benefits? And what's the difference? Mark, what's your thoughts?
Oh, look, on all in all, we've had some bloody incredible stories this last 3 months on buying off the plan. Most people have had an uplift of about 30%. So they've bought for like 900 grand and valuations came in at like 1.2. Most of the people, some have been up 100, 200. There's been a trick to making sure your bank's using not the contract price, but the valuation. You got to ask that question up front. But yeah, and then there's been some real bad ones, like just people going, I thought, and then with the reality of when they walk into their property that's new, it's not what they thought exactly, and it hurts.
I think one thing I love about commercial property, regardless of how the market it's doing itself, you can create some really good value and really impact the value of that property. Like with residential, you're really relying on that capital growth. We've seen people do renovations and it's worth less because of the timing of the market they're selling. We've seen people do nothing and it's worth more. We've seen people knock down the house, not rebuild. Enough time's gone past and the land's worth more. So there's some great stories with residential. But what I love about commercial, within months, days, you can impact the value of that pricing based on your own sort of experience, intuition, and deal making. So there's a great, and that's even exacerbated with off the plan. There, a lot of time it's the orphan child, the redheaded child for developers. When they're looking at their GR, they're just like, all right, it's X amount plus the commercial. And we've seen that on deals where the commercial's worth $10-20 million. It's like, the commercial. But there's a great so there's not always that thought that goes into it, how to increase the value of it, where I know we've gone through floor plans of residential, added studies and increased the whole site value by $10 million. But commercial is often left to just be there till the end. Quite often you see it empty for a year or two after the development, but a lot of that leaves opportunity for a really savvy buyer. So, Mark, what would you look at doing for if you're buying off the plan? Retail or industrial, whichever one?
I'd probably do industrial. I think, shops. We've actually got some shops coming up at the moment, but I think the real upshot is residential has a lot of knock-on effects. So if you want to actually amend a floor plan or change something, there's so many complications to doing that. If you want to go Gucci goo goo on your industrial purchase, there's so many less rules. There's probably 80% less rules or less compliance. So when you've got the whole team on there, the developer, the builder, the fire people, the engineers, you can actually make some very cool changes that don't affect other lots, that improves your lot. So we've seen some people, partition walls, as long as the fire compliance was there, they could go ham on the place. So I think if you know exactly what you want and you can picture it and you actually baby that into the contract, insist it goes into the contract, and then you nurture that through with inspections until settlement, I think you can actually, where the PowerPoint's going to go, can I do this? If you got that allowance with the builder or developer, you're going to make big money on upshot.
Yeah, and I think like a good example I've seen in retail, previously is adding services like the grease trap connection to your shop, having it
Huge.
agree, like massive.
Massive.
And the key thing is all these things sound simple, but once it's built, are nearly impossible. So
Yep.
it's very smart to get it done previously. So getting an exhaust fan connection, because a lot of people think, oh, I don't know who's going to.
There's no strata formed.
Yeah,
When
there's no
you can do that. That's just another level of hurdles that you got to get through once you've got a strata to convince and vote and stuff like that.
Yeah, so if you let's look at two retail shops, and you could see buyer one just buys it, doesn't ask for anything, and then buyer two, they ask for a grease trap connection to their shop. They ask for an exhaust fan connection. They ask for
Massive.
pre-approval for sign or power, but signage.
Yeah.
They ask for. There's a lot of things where you've got to look when you buy that retail shop. You need to look and go, if a cafe operator wants to operate it, what do they need? And I need to get those pre-approvals pre-written in the strata when it's just the developer having all the control. Because once you've got 20, 50 owners above you in the strata and you're trying to get signage approved or a grease trap, sometimes construction-wise you can't even do it. But just as a paperwork procedure, it's very difficult to get Taco Bell in DY. It took a year through strata, and that was already had the grease trap connections, had everything. Like they built it all. It just needed the tick from strata, and it took a year. So that's the difference between sometimes getting a tenant and losing a tenant. But yeah, if you look at it from that angle and have it all you should almost have like a page of pre-approvals in your shop approval, because it doesn't expire. If it's a first tenant or in 30 years, that tenant can use those approvals.
Well, you look at a local lawyer that's brought up in Rodber Road, the amendments that they've made on the back of really, really having a look over their floor plan and making sure it's a phenomenal floor plan, a good floor plan. I think to shop that floor plan with other real estate agents is also okay when you're buying it to get opinions. I think people will be surprised, like even if someone, like if you were buying off the plan through another agent and you came to me and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this in the premises. This is the plan. This is the price. What do you reckon about the price? How do you think I should approach this? Agents will help you. Agents will help you. If you ask for advice, you go belly to belly in a real estate agency and ask them for advice. They're not going to walk away from you. They're going to give you advice, good advice like we're talking about today at that critical time. So I think today we just wanted to give that awareness to everyone about, when you are buying off the plan, like go, if there is that, and ask for flexibility in contract terms. But Michael, another one you may not know of, we just had a building where there was 85 warehouses. Half of them had all of them had parking for two, and so, but in front of the warehouse you could only get 1.5. So every second warehouse got direct parking in front, and every other warehouse got parking, one at the front, one on the driveway. So when we were selling them, we were saying, look, a lot of them got them at the front, some are on the driveway, and in the contract it showed a diagram of where the spaces should be. People came along without my knowledge and said, through their lawyer, said, we are not buying this warehouse unless you guarantee these two spaces in front of my lot. So what happened is that happened, and the developer said, okay, well, we'll give you the guarantee for you. And then I got a couple of calls on settlement, people saying, hey, I didn't get my 2 car spaces in front of my lot. My next door neighbour did, but I didn't. And then I'm going back to the developer and I said, hey, and they're like, it wasn't stipulated in the contract that, like, some people stipulated next door did. We couldn't do it with you guys. And we have that flexibility in the contract because it wasn't picked up by the purchaser's lawyer or mentioned, so we have that flexibility. So you got to, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Make sure you're the squeaky wheel when you're buying stuff. Ask millions of questions, and you'll make a lot
Yeah,
of
and
money.
it's definitely one of those things where people, they will look at, well, it's very important to get a good lawyer who's familiar with off the plan. And it's one of those things where it's almost trial and error. You need to, I know for us with any type of deal, when something's gone wrong or we've heard something, we've learnt from it. But especially when you may only buy one property in your life, or if that, and you sort of want to make sure you get it right. So it's a lot of pressure. And you're always thinking of the good stuff, or what could increase your value? What could this? What could that? But a lot of people miss the basics. Like, what, there's a marketing plan, but
Big time.
what did council approve on this lot? Okay, you're
Yeah,
telling me on a real estate portal it should be 5 meter ceilings, but what's the construction plan actually say? And what does
yeah,
my contract say that I am left with? Because we all know things can change. So if I thought I was buying a 5 meter ceiling, can they give me a 2 meter ceiling? Can they get me
yep,
a, like, what is that? And it's good to, I know a lot of people know residential is like a 5% rule, but what
yeah.
about in commercial? Is 5%? There's a big difference between 100 square meters ground floor and getting 95, and thinking you're getting a 5 meter ceiling and you get a 3 meter ceiling. Like, there's,
That's
things
I had that
change.
I had that one yesterday. It's and what happens is people assume. They
Yeah.
assume they assume they can't lock it in. They assume they can't get any form of guaranteeing the contract. They assume that yes, we're told that we're definitely going to get that. There's agents that are rounding stuff off, and then they hear the rounding, but they don't hear the exacting. And then because they need exacting with ceiling heights, for example, they need to have. I had a guy yesterday which was talking about he has carpet layer. He really needed those ceiling heights with the forklift. So you really want to make sure you're getting that 100%.
And also, you've got to take a little bit of responsibility. They think, oh, I can just blame the agent, or the agent knows. There's a lot of shit agents out there who don't look at the
Yeah,
construction plans, and the
yeah,
developer who's just thinking, I'm selling and I'll be gone, may not be as, I don't want to say truthful, because you could say, yeah, it's 5 meter ceilings, but not really say, well, most of them have 4 meter, but the agent only heard 5 meters, so just assumed
yeah,
everything had 5 meters. They didn't
yeah,
check which lots. Like, it varies lot to lot. And
yeah,
even where your lot is positioned, is that you think it's going to be opposite a loading bay, and then that changes. You think the toilets are going to be there, but can that change? Like,
yeah.
you've got to, I think the big thing is, look at what council have approved, the boring plans that have all the lines on it. Look at what's stamped, and then compare it to the marketing plans, because there's a big difference between a marketing plan of just your lot and then
Not
the
a bad
whole site
idea.
plan
Not a
of
bad
where it is.
idea. Yeah.
So
Because out of interest, we're not allowed to, when we're selling off the plan, developers won't give us, often won't give agents the building plans
yeah.
99.9% of the time, because they have that flexibility in the contract in the case of running an emergent, last minute change, urgent stuff. They don't want that to be held hamstrung by that original plan. So they just have the marketing plans, which are a bit looser.
And
And whenever we're selling off the plan, we actually ask for the full size building construction plans. We never pull them out on an appointment with the buyer, but we always just have a look ourselves before when we leave the appointment or go into the appointment, and just check stuff.
before people say, oh, the dodgy developer, it's not out of malice. It's out of, things can change. Now, you can
Yeah,
imagine if they've committed to a lot and a
always.
location, and let's say fire safety changes, and the best way or the most efficient way to do the fire safety would be going through your lot. But
Yeah,
if it's in the contract so tight and they
yeah,
can't, like we've all seen, like a movie, or even like where the government want to build a road and they can't go through there, they've got to go around it, and it's just a mess. Like, there are reasons why they try and leave it vague, especially why it's good to know what stage you're buying in the development. If the building's been knocked down and it's half constructed, there's probably not going to be many changes, if any. But if it
yeah,
hasn't been knocked down then there still could be a lot of momentum, a lot of changes. They could have one DA approved and they've already applied for some more changes to that. But then again, we know sometimes when a building's built, how it looks on a plan to how it looks in real life, they go, oh, we could fit more storage over there because that's a lot wider than we thought. So
Absolutely.
a lot can change, but
So, Michael, should I buy a commercial property off the plan? Does it matter? What's the conclusion on that?
Yes, yes, it matters. But if you're proactive and you ask for the changes, you can increase the value and the potential tenants who would rent it dramatically.
Boom. Boom.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Burjo. Everyone, hope you enjoyed the commercial advice from today. Take care.